The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. They blocked the sun over every major city. Each vessel was larger than anything humans had ever built. The shadows they cast turned day into night across the planet. Commander Zither stood on the bridge of his flagship. He looked down at the small blue planet below. His four eyes narrowed with satisfaction. This was the 47th world his fleet had claimed. The process was always the same. Arrive, demand, collect, and leave. Simple creatures always surrendered when they saw true power. The Vorthan Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They took what they wanted from lesser species: food, minerals, technology, and sometimes the species themselves. Resistance was rare. Resistance that succeeded was unheard of. Open communication channels, Zither commanded. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. The message went out to every device on Earth. Every phone, every television, every computer screen showed the same image. A tall creature with gray skin and a crown of bone upon its head. Behind him stood rows of armored soldiers. "People of this world," Zither began. "I am Commander Zither of the Vorthan Imperial Fleet. Your planet now belongs to the Empire. You will provide tribute. 60% of your agricultural output, 40% of your mineral resources, 10 million of your people for labor. You have 72 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will take what we need by force. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses are meaningless. Submit, and you will survive as servants. Resist, and you will perish as examples." The transmission ended. Panic spread across the globe. Governments held emergency meetings. Military leaders calculated their options. The math was not good. Satellite imagery showed over 200 ships in orbit. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. In a bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps, the leaders of Earth gathered. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists filled the room. The air was thick with fear and desperation. "We cannot fight them," said the Secretary General of the United Nations. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Perhaps we should negotiate. Reduce the numbers. Find a middle ground." "There is no middle ground with slavers," said Admiral Chun Wei of the Pacific Command. "Today they take 60%. Tomorrow they take 80%. Eventually they take everything." "Then what do you suggest?" asked the American president. "Our missiles cannot penetrate their shields. Our jets cannot match their fighters. We are outgunned in every possible way." A woman stood from the back of the room. She was small, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Dr. Helena Voss had spent 40 years studying theoretical physics. She had also spent the last 10 years working on a project that officially did not exist. "Perhaps not every way," she said. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. 3 years ago, we detected unusual energy signatures from a crashed object in the Siberian wilderness. We recovered it. We studied it. The technology was beyond our understanding at first, but we learned. We adapted. We built. She placed a small device on the table. It looked like nothing special, a metal cylinder no bigger than a flashlight. This is a field disruptor. It generates a frequency that destabilizes energy-based shields, any shields, including theirs. The room erupted with questions. How did she know it would work? How many did they have? Could they build more? "We have 12, Dr. Voss replied. "We can build more, but it will take time. Time we do not have. However, we do not need to destroy their entire fleet. We only need to hurt them badly enough that they decide we are not worth the trouble." Admiral Chun leaned forward. "Explain. The Vorthan have conquered 46 worlds with this fleet. Not once have they faced serious opposition. They are confident, overconfident. They expect us to surrender or die trying to fight with weapons that cannot touch them. They do not expect us to actually damage them. If we can destroy even a fraction of their ships, If we can make this conquest costly, they may decide to find easier prey. That is a significant gamble, said the Russian president. It is our only gamble, Dr. Vos replied. The plan came together over the next 48 hours. 12 strike teams, 12 targets, the largest ships in the Vorthen fleet. Each team would carry a disruptor device and enough explosives to cripple a vessel. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. Volunteers lined up anyway. Captain Sarah Mitchell led the team assigned to the flagship. She had flown combat missions for 15 years. She had lost friends, faced death, and always found a way through. This mission felt different. This time, she knew she probably would not come back. Listen up, she told her team as they loaded into the modified shuttle. We are going to fly straight into the belly of that thing. We are going to plant our charges. And we are going to make these bastards regret ever coming here. Questions? There were none. The 72 hours ended. Commander Zither waited for the surrender message. Instead, he received silence. They choose death, he said with something like respect. Very well. Begin the cleansing. The Vorthen fighters launched. Thousands of them, descending toward Earth like a swarm of metal locusts. Earth's air forces rose to meet them. The battle was brutal. Human pilots died by the hundreds. But they fought with a ferocity the Vorthen had never seen. They rammed their damaged planes into enemy fighters. They flew into certain death just to take one more alien down with them. While the sky burned, 12 shuttles slipped through the chaos. They were small, fast, and modified with every piece of stolen alien technology humanity had acquired. Their pilots flew better than they had ever flown before. Sarah's shuttle approached the flagship. The disruptor activated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the massive ship's shields flickered. They sparked. They failed. Go! Sarah shouted. The shuttle dove into a launch bay. Vorthen soldiers scrambled to respond, but the humans moved faster. They had trained for this. They had prepared. They fought through the corridors with weapons designed to hurt these particular enemies. Commander Zither received reports of intrusions across his fleet. 12 ships breached, shields down on all of them. Explosions in critical systems. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he did not recognize. Fear. Seal all bulkheads. He ordered, find these vermin and destroy them. Sarah's team reached the reactor core. They had lost 3 people getting there. The survivors worked quickly, placing charges on every critical component. This is Mitchell, she spoke into a communicator. Charges set. 60 seconds to detonation. All teams, report. One by one, the other teams checked in. 9 had succeeded. 3 had been killed before completing their mission. 9 ships would burn. Sarah turned to her remaining team. There were only 2 of them left. Private James Wong and Sergeant Maria Santos. No way out, she said simply. Never expected one, Wong replied. They stood together as the timer counted down. Somewhere above them, Zither screamed orders that no one could follow in time. The explosions began. 9 massive ships tore themselves apart from the inside. Fire bloomed in space. Debris rained down toward Earth. The flagship broke into 3 pieces, spinning away into the void. The surviving Vorthen vessels fell into chaos. They had never experienced such losses. They had never faced prey that could bite back. The human air forces pressed their advantage. More Vorthen fighters fell. The orbital bombardment stopped as surviving ships tried to regroup. On Earth, the celebrations were short. The victory was incomplete. Over 100 Vorthen ships remained. They still had the power to destroy everything. But they did not. The new Vorthen commander, Sub-Commander Thrinix, surveyed the wreckage of his fleet. 9 capital ships destroyed. Thousands of soldiers dead. All for a planet that should have surrendered in terror. Sir, his tactical officer said, we still have sufficient forces to complete the conquest. Should I order the ground assault? Thrinix, considered. He thought about the beings below, creatures who had no chance of winning, yet fought anyway. Creatures who flew their primitive ships into certain death just to slow the invasion. Creatures who infiltrated warships armed only with small weapons and courage. No, he said finally. Sir, this conquest is no longer profitable. We have lost 9 ships of the line. We have lost our commander. We have lost face before the Empire. And for what? A small band of maniacs who would rather die than serve. He turned away from the view screen. There are easier worlds to conquer. Worlds where the people understand their place. Set course for the outer rim. We leave this cursed system. The Vorthen fleet gathered its survivors. It collected its dead where possible. Then it turned away from Earth and vanished into the darkness between stars. Humanity watched them go. There were no cheers. Too many had died. Too much had been destroyed. But there was something else. Something that had not existed before that terrible week. Hope. Dr. Voss began training new scientists to understand the alien technology. Factories started producing disruptors by the thousands. Shipyards designed new vessels built for war. Humanity had learned a terrible lesson, but they had also learned something valuable. They were not alone in the universe. And the universe was not friendly. 5 years later, the first human warships left Earth. They were not as large as Vorthen vessels. They were not as elegant or as powerful, but they were tough. They were fast. And they were crewed by beings who simply did not know how to surrender. The Vorthen Empire received reports of a new presence in the galaxy. A species that traveled from system to system, freeing worlds that had been conquered. A species that fought with impossible determination. A species that had learned to take alien technology and make it better. Commander Threnix, now an admiral in the Imperial fleet, read these reports with growing unease. He remembered the small blue planet. He remembered the creatures who had chosen death over service. He remembered the fear he had felt on that day. He should have destroyed them when he had the chance. Now it was too late. Humanity spread across the stars. They found other conquered peoples. They taught them to fight. They shared the technology they had stolen and improved. An alliance formed, then another. Then another. The Vorthen Empire, which had ruled for 3,000 years, began to crumble. Their tribute worlds rebelled. Their subject races rose up. Their fleet, once invincible, found itself facing enemies on every front. And at the center of it all stood humanity. The species that should have been crushed. The species that should have become slaves. The species that had looked at the most powerful empire in the galaxy and said no. The Overlords had demanded tribute. They had expected fear and submission. They had received something else entirely. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and that giant had decided to take everything they had. Every ship. Every world. Every piece of their empire. The humans were not content to simply survive. They were not satisfied with freedom for themselves alone. They had seen the cruelty of the Vorthen Empire, and they had decided that such cruelty could not be allowed to continue. Sarah Mitchell became a legend. Her name was spoken on 100 worlds. The woman who had given her life to light the first spark of resistance. Schools were named after her. Statues were built. Her final transmission, "Charges Set," became a rallying cry for freedom. The war lasted 20 years. It was brutal and bloody and terrible. But humanity had learned something in that first confrontation. They had learned that power was not everything. That numbers were not everything. That technology was not everything. Will mattered. Courage mattered. The willingness to sacrifice everything for something greater than yourself mattered. The Vorthen Empire fell on a quiet morning. Their capital world surrendered without a fight. Their last emperor knelt before a human admiral and offered his crown. The admiral took it. She held it in her hands for a long moment, thinking of all the blood that had been spilled. Then she crushed it and let the pieces fall to the ground. "No more emperors," she said. "No more overlords. No more tribute. The galaxy was free. And humanity, the small species from the small blue planet, had made it so. Not because they were the strongest, not because they had the best technology, but because they had refused to kneel when kneeling was the only sensible option. That was the lesson the Vorthan never understood. Some species could be conquered. Some species could be broken. But humans were neither. Humans were stubborn, foolish, brave, and absolutely unwilling to accept that anything was impossible. The Overlords had demanded tribute. The Imperial fleet had taken everything. And in the end, humanity had taken it all back and more besides.